mentioned. Okay.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
We're on Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Ashi. So we're discussing the possible laws of ha'omed liftos kipoda dami. If something is going to be redeemed, do we consider it to be as if it was redeemed? Ha'omed lizare kizarek dami. If something's going to be thrown, do we consider as if it was actually thrown? And if you say that if it's fit to be poder, it's fit to be thrown, it's thrown, or it's poder, then it has a shas heter. If it has a shas heter, then it'll have other dinim as well. So Amar Vashi, Amrita l'shmaita kamei Rav Nachman, afilu tema lan mamish, afilu tema de pigel bizrika. Even if you say that the animal stayed overnight without zrika, the Kohanim chose not to do zrika, or you had pigel intent during the zrika, the key line over here is, again, where we're going to learn, interestingly, the ibai parik amar, ibai havel zarek lo amrinan. So Gemara makes a chiluk over here, that when you say ha'omed blank 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 ke blank dummy, so you don't say that when there's an act needed. So for example, ha'omed li zarek, something that is ready to be thrown, lav kizorek dami. We don't say kizorek dami. Why? Because it's missing an act. If it's missing an action, i.e. zrika, then you don't say ha'omed li zarek kizorek dami, because it's missing an action. But pidyon is not missing an action, interestingly, even though I would have thought it is. Pidyon is merely done with words. If you have the money somewhere else, you could still be poda the animal with your words that I'm redeeming the animal. Therefore, we will say ha'omed liftos kipoda dami, but we will not say ha'omed lizorek kizarek dami, or in our English we will say ha'omed lizarek lav kizorek dami. Just because it's fit and ready to be thrown, it's not yet thrown, because at the end of the day, you need to go ahead and you need to do an action. If it's missing an action, then it is not yet done. Says the Gemara Meisvei. So now we're going to ask a kasha on this assumption that we don't say ha'omed lizarek kizarek dami. We're going to ask a kasha. This brisa implies that ha'omed lizarek, something that's ready and fit to be thrown, to do zrika with, is considered as if it had the zrika done. Why? Again, if we say that the zrika was done, then all of a sudden it was mutter to the Kohanim. That's how we started this whole discussion. And if the zrika was done, then it had a shas heter. Had a time that it was mutter to the Kohanim, and then once it has a shas heter, if you remember, as we'll see in a second again, once it has a shas heter, it's no longer kache kachim. Now if it's kache kalim, so now you're not going to have any me'ila involved. Let's say, klal amar Rabbi Yoshua, kol shahaiselo shas heter l'kohanim ein ma'alim ba. Ein ma'alim ba means that me'ila does not imply that since something has a shas heter, once something has a shas heter, so me'ila does not imply. The question is, when does this shas heter happen? When there's something that was mutter to the Kohanim, so now it had a shas heter, a shas that was mutter to the Kohanim. Me'ila no longer applies because it takes it from kache kachim to kache kalim. Now me'ila will no longer apply. When is it shas heter? We'll see in a second. V'chol shelo haiselo shas heter l'Kohanim. If something was never mutter to the Kohanim, then it stays in the category of kodesh kachim. Mo'alim ba, and if you're mo'el it, then you're going to be over me'ila. Ve'ezu shas heter l'Kohanim. So what is the shas heter l'Kohanim? Shalana v'shenit made v'sheyatza. If it's lana, or if it becomes tamei, or if it goes out of the azara, that's when it has a shas heter. We'll explain what that means in just a second. What's the one that does not have a shas heter l'Kohanim? So let's start with the second one. Again, the given is that this animal is kache kachim. Unless it becomes mutter at some point to Kohanim, it remains in the category of kache kachim, and therefore if you get hana from it, you will be over me'ila. So what's an example where it had no shas heter to Kohanim, and therefore it stays in the category of kodesh kachim? Shenishchata chutzes mana. At the time of the shechita, you shechted outside of its time, or you shechted outside of the Beis Hamikdash, or you were makabel the dam as a psul. You were pasul when you were makabel the dam and you throw it. So this animal never had a shas heter, because from the time that it was slaughtered, it was usher right away, because you slaughtered it outside of the time, outside of the place. You did the zrika, again, you were makabel the dam, because it's not mutter until after the zrika, you were makabel the dam and you threw it as a psul. It never had a shas heter. So this animal, if you now go ahead and get benefit from, you will be over me'ila, because it was always kache kachim. But now the question is, what's the case that had a shas heter? What's that example? Says Gemara, my love lana mamish. V'hacha di boy havizariku, uktani de'ein ma'alim. The Gemara asks a very interesting suggestion, makes a very interesting suggestion. The Gemara wants to suggest that what does it mean when it says, again, Ezohi Sha'as Heter L'Kohanim, which one had a Sha'as Heter L'Kohanim? Shalana. What does that mean? So Gemara wants to suggest what happened in this case. You have an animal, you shechted it, you don't do the zrika, and you leave it overnight. And yet, that's considered to be a shas heter. There was a time of heter, and now you're over me'ila if you use it. What does that imply? You didn't do the zrika yet. What does that imply? If I'm telling you that if you go ahead and you take an animal that was shechted, and the zrika was not done, and nevertheless you're going to have a shas heter, we consider that it had a shas heter, that there was a time that it was mutter to the kohanim. What does that imply? Ha'omed li zarek, something that is destined, that is ready to be thrown, kizorek dami. There's no other way to suggest that. If you say that it wasn't actually thrown, and yet there's going to be me'ila that's going to apply to it, so then there's no other way to suggest that except to say that ha'omed li zarek is kizorek dami. That something that is going to be thrown is as if it were thrown. You just finished telling me ha'omed li zarek lav kizorek dami. Something that is fit and ready to be thrown is not as if it was actually thrown. So what are you going at and now telling me the opposite? That's again, assuming that when it says lana, the Gemara is making this very far-fetched assumption that lana means that you let it stay overnight before doing the zrika. If you let it stay overnight after doing the zrika, then there's no chiddush. The reason that it was shas heter is because you did the zrika. 1 second. Says the Gemara, lo, nice try, but not good enough. Re'uya latzeis, u're'uya litame. The next two words we remove. What does it mean? Again, let's read it into the Brisa. Kol shahaisa lo shas heter l'kohanim ein ma'alin ba. Doesn't mean mila doesn't apply. It means the opposite. You can't be ma'alit. V'kol shelo haisa lo shas heter l'kohanim ma'alin ba. There is mila. Again, if you don't take it out of the time, if you don't take it out of being a kodesh kachim by giving it a shas heter, it stays kodesh kachim. So the second case we understand. Shelo haisa lo shas heter is a case where what? Again, at the time that it was shechted, or it was mekabel, the dam with a pasul person, and never had a time that it was mutter, and therefore lemaisa it stays kodesh kachim and you do me'ila. So what is this case where it had a shas heter, and now me'ila will no longer apply? So we thought it meant what? We thought it meant that it was not yet even the zrika was done by the Omed Lizarek Kizarek Dami. The Gemara says, no, that's ridiculous. Omed Lizarek Lav Kizarek Dami, like you said before. Where does it say that you have a shas heter? You did the zrika. You shechted it, you did the zrika, then you left it overnight. So now you left it overnight. Lemaisa, now you have lana. But there's no what? There's not going to be any more, me'ila, because again, once you do the zrika, it's a shas heter and me'ila can no longer apply. And therefore, but again, what's the problem? It says shalana, which is fine. Vishenidme v'sheyatza. What does it mean? Shenidme v'sheyatza. What does it mean? Re'uya latzeis re'uya l'tamei. What does that mean? That means that when is it roy? Roy means that it's now fit to have the isser of yitzia. When does a korban enter the isser of going outside of the Beit HaMikdash, or the isser of somebody that's tamei touching it? Only once the zrika was done. Before the zrika was done, let's say you shecht an animal and you don't do zrika, it becomes aser to you because you didn't do zrika. Now if a tamei touches it, it's not aser because the tamei touched it, it's aser because you didn't do zrika. If it goes outside of the mikdash and you didn't do zrika, it's not aser because it went outside of the mikdash. The first reason it's aser is because you didn't do zrika. The fact that it says that it's aser because of nitmate or because of it went outside the Beit HaMikdash implies that what? You already did the zrika. Therefore, we're dealing with a case where you already did this zrika. Now there's a separate problem. You took it out of the mikdash, or you touch it as a tamei person. But again, going back to our purposes, when it says that it has a shas heter, that there's a time when it was mutter, that's only when the zrika was done, which works out perfectly with what we said. We thought maybe even when the zrika is not done, ha'omei lizarek kizarek dami. No, ha'omei lizarek lav kizarek dami, like you suggested, and it's only going to have a shas heter once the zrika is done. Says the Gemara, that's a nice suggestion. There's only one problem. Avalina mamishmai. What happens if you don't do any zrika at all? Hachanami dim'olin. That implies what? That if you don't do the zrika, we said what? If you don't do the zrika, then you do me'ila. If you don't do the zrika, it never came out of the kodesh kachim. It never came out of the category of kodesh kachim, and there's me'ila. There's only one problem. It says the wording of the Gemara according to this. You're explaining that the Gemara, that this brisa where it says kol shahaisa lo shas heter l'kohanim ein ma'alin ba is what? A case where you did the zrika. Where you did the zrika, me'ila no longer applies. Says the Gemara, the words don't make sense. Hai kol shahaya lo shas heter l'kohanim v'chol shelo haisa lo shas heter l'kohanim. What should it have said? Kol sheyesh lo shas heter l'kohanim ein ma'alin ba v'chol she'ein lo shas heter l'kohanim ma'alin ba mi ba'alei. Says the Gemara, we have to throw out this whole discussion here. Can't be any proofs about a omei lizarek kizarek dami or not. Why? Because the way you're explaining this brisa, that what we're talking about where the actual zrika was done, doesn't work out glot with the words. Because again, what are we trying to figure out? Klal Amar Rabbi Yoshua, back in the beginning. Kol shehaiselo shas heter lekohanim ein ma'alim ba. Anything that had a shas heter to the kohanim, there's no me'ila, i.e. anything that had this zrika done, there's no me'ila. V'chol v'lo haiselo shas heter lekohanim, it never had this zrika done, ma'alim ba. Gemara says, why is it talking in the past? What should it be saying? It should be speaking, if it's speaking about that you during the zrika or you're not doing the zrika, what should it say? Kol sheyesh lo shas heter lekohanim. Anything that has a shas heter, anything that at any point has a shas heter, i.e. anytime you do this rika, ein ma'alim ba, there's no longer. What's it talking about in the past? You did this rika. What do you mean? I could do this rika right now. Kol sheyesh lo shas heter. Anytime there's shas heter that I could do this rika. What does the past imply? It past implies what could have happened. What could have happened? Ha'omed li zarek. It could have been thrown kizarek dami. That implies that something was fit. It could have done it, but you didn't actually do it. Again, we're not going to get into it too much, but the bottom line is you can't bring any proofs from this brisa. The wording of the brisa doesn't seem glot. The wording of the brisa seems to imply that we're talking about a case of a omed lizarek and not a case where you actually did the zrika. So let's leave that on the side for now. So again, we're going back to our assumption. We haven't proved anything for this brisa. We haven't had a good kasha. We threw away the kasha. We also haven't been able to prove anything for us. We've gone back to the, again, suggestion that we started with, that there's two different things. Ha-omed liftos kipodadami, something that is set to be redeemed is as if it got redeemed because there's no action that's missing. It's just a matter of saying the words. Therefore, once it's said and ready to be redeemed, it's as if you redeemed it. But kol ha'omed lizarek, when you have the blood that's ready to be thrown, lav kizarek dami, we don't consider it to be as if it was thrown, since when it's missing in action, we can't say that just because it's fit to be done, it's as if it was actually done. So says the Gemara, Elamar Rav Ashi. Gemara is going to ask another question now, Rav Ashi. Back up a second. You were trying to bring proofs from Me'ila, right? You just tried to bring a proof from Me'ila that by Me'ila, ha'omed lizarek is kizarek dami, and it's different than what we just said, ha'omed lizarek lav kizarek dami. We rejected the proof, but it says, what's the havamina that you could even compare Me'ila to Tumah in the first place? What was the whole purpose of this? How did we get this whole discussion yesterday? I know yesterday's daf was very hard. How did we start this whole discussion yesterday? This whole discussion yesterday started with, we want to know that if something has a shas heter, right? If food has a shas heter, if it becomes mutter at some point, is it still, right? Does it have to be makabel tumah? Can it go ahead and give off the tumah or not? So it says the Gemara, Elamar Abaye, Me'ila tumah karamis. The whole discussion of Me'ila was brought up again to prove that by tumah, it all depends on the food having a shas heter. Right? Once the food has a shas heter, once it was able to be eaten, it became in the category of food, now it can be makabel tumah and it can give off tumah. But if it doesn't actually become food, it can't go and be makabel tumah or give off tumah. But what are you making this whole comparison to Me'ila for? Me'ila mishum kedusha v'lav kedushahi. When you talk about ha'omed lizarek kizarek dami or lav kizarek dami, when you talk about by Me'ila, where we say ha'omed lizarek, maybe you want to prove kizarek dami or not. Again, the given that we have is ha'omed lizarek lav kizarek dami. If it's set to be thrown, we don't consider it to be thrown, and therefore never had a shas heter yet, in terms of tumah and tara. How can you compare that to Me'ila? What's the reason by Me'ila? What's the story by Me'ila? By Me'ila, everything depends on whether this item that you're using, which you're not supposed to be using, has sanctity or not. Me'ila, mishum kedusha v'lav kedushahi. Lebasar depakala kedushase b'mai hadra rachvala. Me'ila all depends on sanctity. Let's say you say ha'omed lizarek kizarek dami. Let's just say. Let's say you say like you wanted to ask me. We said ha'omed lizarek lav kizarek dami, right? By food. So now you want to ask me a question. Let's say that by Me'ila it is true that ha'omed lizarek is kizarek dami, and it seems to contradict that which we want to say by food. Says Gemara, how could you still couldn't ask a question from Me'ila? Why? Because even if you say ha'omed lizarek kizarek dami by Me'ila, therefore what? Once it's ready to be thrown, it's as if it were thrown, and therefore what? Therefore it loses its sanctity, because again, once it's zorek, for sure, once it's thrown, it goes down from kodesh kachim to regular. So ha'omed lizarek kizarek dami, and therefore it has no sanctity. So Me'ila doesn't apply. But once the sanctity is gone from a korban, there's no other mechanism to have the sanctity come back again. So by Me'ila, even if you say ha'omed lizarek kizarek dami, even if you want to say that by Me'ila, once something is ready to be thrown, we're going to consider it as if it were thrown. And therefore it's going to be lowered from a kodesh kachim, because what happens when it's actually thrown, it goes from kodesh kachim to kachim kalim, and now there's no longer a parsha of Me'ila. Even if you say that, you still can't compare it to tumah and tara. Why? Because by tumah and tara, it's not a matter of sanctity. Tumah mishum uchla v'lav uchlahi. They make a little changes with the words. Tumah all depends on what? on it being food or not. How do you make something food? When you're dealing with sanctity, some spiritual, I don't want to say Kabbalistic thing, but when you're dealing with sanctity and something spiritual, then I can say, ha'omed li zarek kizarek dami. When you're dealing with a spiritual sanctification type thing, I can say, well, once it's set to be thrown, it's as if it were thrown. But if I'm dealing with the metzius of food, and I need to go ahead and what? The item needs to be food, I can't say ha'omed li zarek kizarek dami, just because there's potential. You can deal with potential to be thrown when you're dealing with tumah, when you're dealing with sanctity. But when you're dealing with actual food, that it needs to be food or not food, it doesn't become food until when? Till you actually do the zrika. Therefore, even if you're going to prove whatever you're going to prove by me'ilah that ha'omed li zarek is kizarek dami, and therefore by me'ilah, once it's fit to be thrown, you're going to consider it as if it was thrown, and therefore if you do me'ilah on it, so lamaisa you're going to be over the me'ilah. At the end of the day, when it comes to food, you have to actually do the zrika. Again, I know this is very complicated, but you have to actually do the zrika by food. The bottom line is, again, ha'omed li zarek, you could say kizarek dami, even if you say that it's like zrika when it comes to sanctity, that in terms of sanctity and kedusha, we're going to consider it as if you threw it, and therefore, lamaisa, you're not going to be over me'ilah. But when it comes to food, if you're saying that you need to do zrika in order to make something into food, so that it'll then be mekabel tumah and give off tumah, the only way to make it into food is by actually doing the zrika. You can't say ha'omed li zarek is kizarek dami. Mashvilei ochla v'tamei tumas ochlin, heicha di lo zarek lo mashvilei ochla v'lo metamei tumas ochlin. So again, what he's doing here is basically saying, even if you're able to prove to me that by me'ilah ha'omed li zarek is kizarek dami, you still couldn't say anything to me about food. You can't prove anything about ha'omed li zarek kizarek dami in order of making this korban into food or not, i.e. in order to make it tumah or mekabel tumah.
It's not a matter of just zerika, it's a matter of the davar matzah taking place. So, for example, in a mincha, you would have the being in a klisharish. Whatever that davar matzah is what's going to make it ochel. In each case, it's the davar matzah that makes it into achila.
No, it's
Yeah.
Well, by a mincha, there is no zrika.
I'm saying it's
The kamitza would be the equivalent. Yeah, in a chanami.
In other words, this is la.
But the point is that we wouldn't say ha'omed likmotz kikama dami over there, because in order to make it into food, you need to actually do the kamitza. Or you have to go ahead and burn. Actually, the zrika would be the burning of the kamitza. You'd have to burn the kamitza. You'd have to go ahead and do the zrika. Whatever the davar matter is, in order to make it into food, you have to actually do it.
Right. Oh, there's no omed.
But when it comes to sanctity, something to become kadosh or not kadosh, then omed would be enough.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Again, I know we're like oversimplifying it. But the two general klalim we've said today is that ha'omed for something, the first thing we said is that ha'omed li zarek, if it's missing an action, we can't assume that the action was done. That's why ha'omed li zarek lav kizarek dami, but ha'omed liftos is kipoda dami. It's as if it was redeemed because it's not missing an action. Word is not an action. And then, even if you're going to say, Omed li zarek is kizarek dami, etc., at the end of the day, it's only going to work, even if it will work, and you want to say, no, even without an action it'll work, it'll only work what? It'll only work in a case where you're taking off, like sanctity, kedusha, but it will not work to actually go ahead and make it into a food. For sure you need to do the zrika. Meisve, another kasha. Hamevi asham talei. Let's say you do a possible sin, v'nodesh lochat, and then you realize that you didn't sin. So you bring the asham, you haven't shachted it yet. Im achalo nishchad no delo yetze v'yira be'eder. Dear Rabbi Meir, it's very interesting. Rabbi Meir says that you could put it into the regular flock. Again, in general, when you set aside a korban, obviously, once you set aside the korban, you can no longer take it back. But since here, it sounds like you set it aside only conditionally, because you may have sinned, so then when you realize that you didn't sin, you can put it back into the regular flock. V'chachamim omrim, no, we're not going to go that far. Yira ad sheyistov v'yimchar v'yiplu damav l'nedava. No, you have to let it go ahead, and you have to let it graze until it gets a mum. Because even though you realize that you didn't do a sin after the fact, we don't assume that you only set it aside on condition that you did the sin. And even if you did, that's not going to be enough to say, okay, now it could just go back. It can never go back to being regular. But you go ahead and you let it go until it gets a mum, and then you sell it, and it goes l'nedava, and l'nedava, as we know, means keit ha-mizbeach, that the mizbeach should always have food. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, that even if you figure out that you didn't do a sin before you shachted it, Yakriv, you can shacht it. Why? Don't worry. I'm sure you got another sin that you need to bring it for. Now, this doesn't apply to everyone else. It might not apply to me, right? But in general, for the Hamon Am, definitely applies to me. But for the Hamon Am, or maybe it doesn't apply to you, I should say, for me it applies. So if you're not coming for this sin, okay, no, you found out you didn't do this sin, shkayach. So now you got 99 other ones that are waiting behind you to bring the asham for. Very, very interesting svara. So you have the thing, you're about to shechta, you realize that you didn't actually do the sin, you bring it anyway. Because at the end of the day, chances are you got some sin that could use a korban. I was thinking the opposite. I got nothing, so I might as well go do a sin anyway. I'm going to bring it anyway. I might as well go find a sin that I should do in the meantime. And then, might as well, if I'm bringing the korban anyway, I might as well just go find a sin.
You're getting close to Sabbateanism.
Yeah. So now Misha Nishchat. So this is before you shecht it. Again, you didn't shecht it yet. You set it aside. You didn't shecht it. You realize that you didn't do the sin. Either it returns to the regular flock. You can't go that far, you have to let it go to mum, or the other extreme is that you actually go ahead and shecht it and assume that it'll cover another sin. Misha nishcha nodelo. Now let's say you already shechted it. So obviously returning it to the flock is no longer an option. Now you shechted it, but you realize you don't really need it because you didn't do the sin. Hadami shapech v'abasar yisaref. That's what I would have thought. You spill the blood on the ground, you burn the basar not on the mizbeach, somewhere else because you can't use it, but you can't return it. Nizrak hadam. Once you throw the dam, habasar yeyachel. Interesting. Once you do the zrika, even though you realize that this korban wasn't necessary, once you did the zrika, it became mutter la'achila, now you can eat it. For Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi says something even more fascinating. Afilu adam bekos. You shechted it. You haven't even done the zrika. Again, if you shechted it and you haven't done the zrika yet, what do we say? You have to spill everything out. Everybody agrees to that. You shecht it and you haven't done the zrika yet, you got to spill everything out. If you already did the zrika, then you can eat the basar. Rabbi Yossi says, I agree. If you shechted and you haven't done this week, you got to throw everything out. But if you already put the blood into a cup, if you did the Kabbalah, then what? Then you can go ahead and you can throw it and you can eat the basar. What does that imply according to Rabbi Yossi? I understand. You have the blood, you haven't yet done this week, and now you know you didn't do the sin. Why doesn't he say that even in that case, again, even before it's in the cup, for sure you have to spill it out. But once it's in the cup, why do you not have to spill it out? What does he hold? Ha'omed li zarek. When it's in the cup and it's ready to be thrown, kizarik dami. Says if you already threw it. Once you already threw it and now you find out that you did the sin, what? Again, if you find out before you put it in the cup, even he agrees you got to spill it out. But if you go ahead and you find out after you already put it in the cup, he holds ha'omed li zarek. Now when it's in the cup, before the cup, it's not ha'omed li zarek. Once in the cup, everything's ready, ha'omed li zarek, good to go, kizarik dami. And everybody agrees that kizarik, that once you're nizrak hadam, you could eat the basar. Because when you did the zrika, it was under the right intentions. And what do you see over here? Where are we saying kol ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami here? What are you allowing the zrika to do? The zrika is not just now taking it out of the category of me'ila. What's it actually doing? It's turning it into ochel. We said that by me'ila, maybe it could take it out of the ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami, right? Maybe that's only by me'ila, where it's got to do something for the sanctity. Ha'omed lizarek could take it out of the sanctity and lower it to kodesh kadashim to kodesh kalim. But even if you say by me'ila that it works, well, again, we were sort of talking in like quasi terms. This is what it means in mitzias. But we said that when it comes to ha'omed lizarek, you would still say lav kizarek dami what? In order to turn it into food. We see clearly not. Ha'omed lizarek, something that's ready to be thrown. You can literally take this basar. You consider it as if you threw the blood already, and now the basar becomes edible. You can eat the basar. Says the Gemara, good try. Midei hu taimi, you think that's why Rabbi Yossi holds that if the dam is in the kosh, you can go ahead and you can throw it because ha'omed lizarek is kizarik dami even to make it into food? No. Amri b'Rav b'shmei de Rabbi Yossi barchnin. They said in Eretz Yisrael, hainu tamar de Rabbi Yossi de kesavar klishares mekachin es hapsulin lechatchil likarvan. This is a fascinating suggestion. The Gemara is saying what? Don't say ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami. Just because it's fit, we said no. You want to say ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami maybe by me'ila. Maybe in order to take off the sanctity. But ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami will definitely not work, A, because it's an action, and B, in general, it won't work to make something into food. If it won't work to make something into food, so then what's Rabbi Yossi talking about? Why, if you have the blood in the cup, do we say go ahead and throw it? What other possible reason could you say go ahead and throw it if you don't say ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami? So I'll tell you another reason. He holds something else. He holds that once something is in a klishares, it becomes mekadesh, even if it's pasul. This blood is now pasul. This korban is pasul because we realize that you didn't do a sin. Once the blood is in a klishares, lechadchila, you can go ahead and you can finish the avoda. Therefore, even though this dam was disqualified because you found out that there was no sin before you did the zrika, since it was already in the klishares, you can go ahead and you can throw it and you can eat the meat, not because ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami and it makes the meat kosher and makes the meat edible. That's not what he holds. It's for a totally unrelated reason that what? Once it's in the klishares, he holds that you can go ahead and you can finish the avoda. That's what he says. But it's not a din in ha'omed lizarek kizarik dami. There's a separate din that when something is in the klisharis, when the blood is in the klisharis, you can finish the avoda. Therefore, we have no proof. Amalei Rav Ashi l'Rav Kahana. So again, we haven't really proven. We've said that there's reason to say ha'omed lizarik lav kizarik dami by food, but we still seem to hold that Rav Shimon is holding himself maybe that ha'omed lizarik kizarik dami. So the Gemara is leaving that, and now the Gemara is just making another conclusion. It says if you hold kol ha'omed lizarik kizarik dami, let's just assume you hold like the opinion that something that is set and ready to be thrown is as if it was thrown. I can tell you that that person would make a logical conclusion that kol ha'omed lisrof nami kisarav dami. Something that is ready and set to be burned is as if it was burned as well. If something that's ready to be thrown is as if it's thrown, logically one can say something that's ready to be burnt is as if it was burnt. No, sir, para my mitamin tumas ochin offer ba'amaninu. Says Gemara, I have a question then. If something stays overnight, what do you have to do with it? You have to burn it. The paraduma, what do you do with it? You have to burn it. And nevertheless, we know that what? They're makabel tuma. Why should they be makabel tuma? Ha'omed li saref, according to what you're saying, something that's about to be burned, we treat it as if it's burned. Something that's burned is not makabel tuma, doesn't give off tuma. Why, if something stays overnight, can it be makabel tuma and give off tuma? Why can the paraduma be makabel tuma and give off tuma once it's killed? It's ha'omed li saref kisarev dami. It's as if it's dead. It's as if it's not just dead. It's as if it's dust. We're adding another element here. That even if we say, Kol ha'omed lizarik kizarik dami, and even if we say, Kol ha'omed lisoref kisarev dami, once something is set to be burned, it's as if it's burned. There's a separate reason why the paraduma and why food that stays overnight, even though they're set to be burned, they're still going to be makabel tumah and give off tumah. Why? Because there's an exception to the rule. When you have something that's set to be burned, yes, we treat it as if it's burned. But when you look at the paraduma and nosa, there's a separate reason why they're makabel tumah. Why are they makabel tumah? Because they're considered to be chashuv. They're considered to be halig. They're considered to be chibas hakodesh. And something that's chibas hakodesh, even though it's destined to be burned, since they're holy, they're held in high esteem, and they're going to be mitame and mitame other things. That's the answer. You can say kol ha'omed lizarik kizarik dami, shalom ha'yisrael. You can say kol ha'omed lisarev kisarev dami, shalom ha'yisrael. That's the rule. So why is Noser and Paraduma still Tameh and Mitame? Separate reason that it's Chibas Kodesh. Something that's holy is considered to be sacred, and we're going to give it an extra chumrah of being Tameh and Mitame. Says the Gemara, Amalei Ravino Ravashi, Nihide Mahanilu Chibas Kodesh L'ifzilu Degufe. Says the Gemara, it's a little bit of a stretch. You want to tell me that it's Chibas Kodesh, and therefore it's going to become Aser? Fine. Likoro tami nami limimane be rishon v'sheni mi mahanyale. Are you really going to tell me that just because it's holy, we're going to go ahead and say that it's burned? It's as if it's burned, and nevertheless we're going to say it's makabel tumah because it's chibas kodesh, because it's something that's holy. Says Gemara Tifshot, if that's true, deboy reish lakish sarid shal menachos monim bo rishon v'sheni or ein monim bo rishon v'sheni. Says the Gemara, this is complicated, but the Gemara says, now I have another kasha. If it's true that anything that's holy is what? Anything that's holy, even if it's omed lisaref, even if it's not usually makabel tumah, because again, it's basically burned, you're still going to say it's tamei and makabel tumah. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's chibas kodesh, it's special, it's holy, because it's something in the mikdash. So now let me ask you the following question. Reish Lakish asked the following question, and what's he thinking when he asks the question? What's Reish Lakish's question? We know that when you have a mincha, you take flour and you mix it with oil. How does a solid become roy l'kabel tumah? A solid becomes roy l'kabel tumah when it mixes with oil, when it touches a liquid. A solid that touches a liquid is makabel tumah. Part of the reason, not exactly, but there are those who say that when you dip a donut into milk, right, you're supposed to do netilas yadayim. We know that we do netilas yadayim on bread. We also do netilas yadayim when we dip something, like at the Seder. Therefore, throughout the year, if you're going to dip something, that's part of the reason you're not supposed to really touch. Right? When you wash a fruit, you're supposed to dry it off before you eat it. Or wash your hands. Why? The same idea. Because if it gets wet. So similarly, if you take again, I'm not saying it's necessarily 100% connected, but if you take a donut, according to some, people like to dip the donut, the Entenmann's donut, the good old days, the Entenmann's donut. The what? Yeah, karpas. You wash the hands. So right. So the same thing. If you take an Entenmann's white powdered Entenmann's donut and you dip it in the chocolate milk. What is that? What is that? So you have to maybe wash your hands. Because again, when you take the solid and you put it into liquid, now it's makabel tumah.
Which solid are you referring to?
The Entenmann's donut.
Well, if it's a plain donut, it's already been mixed with liquid.
Okay, I'm just giving you an example, Rabbi. You can't ask kasha on mices, but the point is that here the flour is a plain solid. So the flour you mix in the mincha, whatever touches the oil becomes what? Mekabel tumah. Let's say that there's what he's calling over here a srid shel menachos. There's a piece of the flour, a clump of flour that never touches the oil. What's the halacha there? Says the Gemara, Reish Lakish wants to know, is that mekabel tumah or not? Well, according to what we just said, that anything that's kodesh, anything that has chibas kodesh is what? Is going to be tameh and metame, even though it's not really. Therefore, haomei lisarif kisarif dami, even though it's not really tameh or metame, because it's really burnt, the paradum or the nosar. But since it's part of the mikdash, it's part of the kodesh, it's going to have this special chumrah of tameh and metame. So why should it? So what's he asking? The flour that didn't touch oil, it's part of a mincha. Clearly, it's chashav enough that it should have this name of chibas kodesh, that it should be tameh and metame. Clearly, he didn't assume that. Why? Says the Gemara, ki mi boile Reish Lakish d'oraisa, ki kamrinan d'rabanan. Because what? Reish Lakish was asking on a d'oraisa level. What does that mean in English? That means on a d'oraisa level, eina chanami. Once something's ha'omed lisarev, kisarev dami. Nothing to talk about. Once something like a paraduma or noser is set to be burned, it's as if it's ashes, and of course it cannot be makabel tumah. On a dirabanan level, we say, since it's chashuv, since it's, as the Gemara called, since it's a chibas hakodesh, we can say that it's tumah and makabel tumah. Reish Lakish wants to know, do we say the same thing about flour? Flour which is not sarif, it's not burnt. Flour, do we say that on a doraisa level as well, chibas kodesh, are we going to go so far as to extend chibas kodesh to a doraisa level as well? All we see from paraduma and from lina is that something that's as if on a doraisa level it's burnt. Ha'omei kesarv dami, on a doraisa level it's burnt. Midrabanan we're going to be machmir, right? Usually midrabanan. You can be machmir durabanan. You can't be making midrabanan. Midrabanan we're going to be machmir. That say even though it's burnt, we're still going to say it becomes tameh and it's metame. The question is, this flour, which has not touched any oil, but is not omed lisari, if it's not ready to be burnt, this flour, do we treat it again, that on a doraisa level, even on a doraisa level, we're going to say that it's chibas kodesh, and therefore it's going to be tameh and metame, or is it only on the durabanan level that we say that something that's chibas kodesh is tameh and metame? Zok the Mishnah. Haomer harei alai b'machavat, v'hevi b'marcheshes v'hevi b'machavat, Masha hevi videi chovasa lo yatsa. So if somebody says, Harei alai b'machavat, I'm going to bring a korban mincha in a machavat. What was the machavat? The machavat was the flat one. It was the flat griddle. Therefore, what happens? On the flat griddle, what happens? The oil burns off very quickly because it's flat, and therefore you're going to end up with a hard piece of matzah. And you bring it in a marcheshet, but you end up bringing it in a deep pan. What's the deep pan? The deep pan is more of like, there's more room for the oil to bake, and therefore what? The oil doesn't burn off as quickly, and therefore the loaf, even though it's not chametz, it ends up as like a soft and spongy loaf a little bit. So you say you're going to bring a korban mincha in a machavat, in a certain type of shallow kli, and you end up bringing it in a marcheshet, in a deep pan. Or you say you're going to bring it b'marcheshet, v'hevi b'machavat. So what do you guys think? Are you going to be yotzei or not yotzei your neder? Says the Gemara, Mashehevi hevi videi chovatz lo yatsa. You're not yotzei. You promise you're going to bring it in a machavat, but we'll still give you credit for this mincha. Why? As Rashi points out, because we can assume that this one that you brought was an additional mincha. You said you're going to bring a machava, you bring it in a marcheshet. We're going to assume that this was an additional mincha. You still want to bring the machavat. This is an additional one. It can't count for the machavat, because you said you're going to bring a machavat, but we consider it to be an adava, an additional mincha. Zula havi b'machavat. Now, if you say you don't say I'm going to bring a machavat. You said this flour is going to be used for machavat, and then you bring it for a marcheshet, v'hevi b'marcheshet, or this flour is going to be used b'marcheshet, v'hevi b'machavat, harei zo psula. Obviously there we can't say it's an adava, because there you promise you're going to use this flour for machavat and use it for marcheshet, you were lying. When I say I'm going to bring a machavat and then I bring a marcheshet, if we would question you, you'd say, 1 second, I said I'll bring a machavat, I didn't say I'm going to bring it this second, I'll bring it tomorrow. Now I'm bringing a marcheshes. Again, I'm not saying I'm telling the truth, I just have a way out. Here, I have no way out. If I say I'm bringing this flour as a machavat and I bring it as a marchesha, there's no way out. Ha'omer, similarly to the first case, not to the second case. Harei alai shnei asronos lavi b'kli echad. If I say I'm going to bring 2 isarons of flour for a voluntary mincha in 1 kli, vehevi b'shnei kelim, and I bring this 2 esronos, I split it up 1 isaron per kli. So what do we say? what would you say in that case? Don't give me a hard time. I'm not yotzei the fact that I have to bring 2 isronos in 1 kli. I'm going to have to bring that eventually. But the fact that I have 2 different kalim here with each one having 1 isaron, it's 2 other nedavas that I brought. And I'll bring that one tomorrow. Bishnei kalim, or if I say I'm going to bring 2 isarons and 2 kalim, 1 per kli. Vehevi b'kli yachad, or I bring it in 1 kli, I bring both isronos in 1 kli instead of 2 klis. I could say, what? This is another one, and I'll bring the other ones tomorrow, the 2 kalim. Ma shehevi hevi v'yidei chavas liyatza. Fine. But if I say, again, similar to case number 2, Elu, this 2 esronos of what? Of flour, b'kli yachad, v'hevi shnei kalim, and I bring it in 2 kalim. Or I say, these flowers I'll bring in 2 kalim, v'hevi b'kli yachad, v'shnei kalim, v'hevi b'kli yachad, v'hevi psulin again, because you have no way out. It's pretty obvious. 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 2 and 4. The Gemara adds one other point, which really applies to all these cases, which we said was fine, which is, again, 1 and 3. I'm going to bring a machava and I bring a marcheshes. Let's just concentrate on the first case. Or I'm going to bring 2 esonos into 1 kli, behavi b'shnei kalim. Or again, to make it a little bit simpler, the first case in the Mishnah, I'm going to bring a marcheshes, and then I start bringing a machava. We said, well, you get credit for the machava, but you still owe the marcheshes. Says the Gemara, Amru lo, but if there are onlookers as you're about to bring it, and they say, B'kliyacha nadarta, how can you bring the 2 esronos, what? In 2 kalim? You promised you're going to bring it in 1 kli. And then he ignores them, and he kriv am b'shnei kalim psulin. B'kliyacha ksherin. Because what? When you go ahead, let's just use the first example. I find the first one in the Mishnah to be easier. When I go ahead and I say, I'm going to bring a machavat. I'm going to bring a machavat. I'm going to bring it in a shallow pan, and I bring it in a marcheshet. So we said you get credit because what we can assume that you were bringing an additional one, and you're still going to bring the machavat. But if there are people that are waiting there, and you go ahead and when you're bringing the machavat, or when you're bringing the marcheshet, they say, buddy, you promised to bring a marchavat. What should you say? What should you say if in fact it's an adava? Hold off, buddies, don't worry. This is just my additional korban. I'm going to bring the one I promised tomorrow. The fact that you didn't say that, if there were no onlookers, we give you the benefit of the doubt. But if people say to you, what are you doing? You promised to bring it in 1 kli, now you bring it in 2 klim. Or you promised to bring a machavat, and now you bring a marcheshet, and you don't answer them, says Rashi, then you didn't defend yourself. Then we can't assume the best for you and say, well, you're just bringing an additional one. That's what the Gemara says. So without onlookers, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. With onlookers, you've showed your true colors. Says the Gemara, if you say I'm going to bring 2 esonos and 2 kalim vehevi b'kli yachad, we said if you bring it in 1 kli, so you'll be yotzei because again we can assume this is another korban, and then you're going to bring the 2 esonos and 2 kalim tomorrow. However, amru lo b'shnei kalim nedarta. If you say, how could you bring the 2 esonos in 2 kalim? How can you bring it in 1 kli? You promise you're going to bring it in 2 kalim. Hikriya b'shnei kalim sherin nanu l'kli yacha kashtei menachos shenitzarvu. Gemara adds another. Mishnah adds another point. The Mishnah says we're still going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Why? Because in this case, there was a way to be yotzei it, even though you didn't answer them. That means again, Harei machavat, I'm going to bring a machavat, and then you bring a marcheshet, and they say to you, what are you doing? And you don't answer them. Then what? Then it shows that what? That you didn't want to go ahead, and you didn't want to bring the nedava. You should have said, I'm bringing a nedava. So you're not going to be yotzei. But in this case, there's another way out, because when you say you're going to bring, what was the case? When you say you're going to bring 2 esronos in 2 kalim, the halacha is that if you bring 2 esronos in 1 kli, in general, this is a chiddush, but if you go ahead and you're supposed to bring 2 minchas, and you bring both minchas in 1 kli, as long as they're distinguishable, you're yotzei. So over here, the reason I didn't answer you when I'm bringing the 2 in 1 is not because I don't have a good answer for you, is because I'm not doing anything wrong. Because by bringing the 2, again, what we need to know from the end of the Mishnah is that when you bring 2 minchas, you can bring 2 minchas in 1 kli as long as they're distinguishable. You can't bring 2 minchas in 1 kli if they're all mixed together. But if you have 2 minchas and they're in 1 kli and they're distinguishable, so einachanami, you're going to be yotzei.
Why don't you wait till the guy that's bringing the wrong one, and he says, I'm going to bring the right one tomorrow, why don't we wait till tomorrow to give him credit?
We don't. He's not saying anything. What happens is I'm saying I'm bringing a machavat, and now I bring a marcheshet. We're not going to keep track. So the guy says I'm bringing a machavat, and then he brings a marcheshet. We're going to say, okay, he brought the marcheshet as an additional one. He still owes the machavat, but we're going to count the marcheshet. But if he's because we're assuming that the marcheshet is extra. But if when he's carrying the marcheshet to the Beis Hamikdash, we say to him, buddy, his friends say to him, buddy, you promised a machavat. If he doesn't answer, I'm bringing a marcheshet in addition to the machavat, then we don't give him the benefit of the doubt, and we assume that he's just messing with the system, and we're not going to give him any credit.
If he says, I'm going to bring it.
If he says, I'll bring it tomorrow, then in a chanami.
So why don't we wait till tomorrow?
If he says, no, because again, if he says I'm going to bring it tomorrow, then he's fine.
The
point is that he didn't answer in this case.
I know. If he says he's going to
If he says he'll bring it tomorrow, then he's fine. So then,
we give him the benefit of the doubt.
for sure, yeah, but over here he didn't say anything. So we're not going to give him the benefit of the doubt if he doesn't answer.
It's not really credit, it's whether or not it's puzzle.
Correct.
It's not credit.
Correct. It's not credit. Masha heavy, he can eat it.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and you can count it as a mincha, and you don't have to say the whole thing is pasul. Right. That's what I meant. Give him credit means we believe him, and therefore we can eat the korban. Utzricha. So Gemara is just going back for a second. Again, let's just back up. Cases 1 and 3, and we'll end in 2 minutes. Cases 1 and 3. What did we say? Harei alai b'machavad v'hevi b'marcheshes, or harei alai in 2 kalim, and I bring it in 1 kli. So since we can assume that what? That the one that you actually brought is in a dava, this is when there's no onlookers. Since you can assume that the one that's one of them that you brought is in a dava, and the other one you'll bring eventually, we're going to say it's fine. This one's kosher. So what do I need both examples? What do I have to give an example of? I'm going to bring a machavad and I bring it in a marcheshet, and I'm going to bring 2 in 2 kalim, and I'm bringing 2 in 1 keli. What do I have to bring both examples? V'tzricha. Diyash minahach kamaisa mishum da'amar b'machavad b'kamaisa b'marcheshet v'alacha da'aydi v'aydi b'machavad v'aydi v'aydi b'marcheshes ema yidei nidro nami yatsa. You might have suggested that when I say I'm going to bring it in a machavat, and I bring it in a marcheshet, so of course I can't be yotzei the neder, because I promised the machavat, and I brought it in a marcheshet, I can't be yotzei the neder. Yes, I'll give you credit, and quote unquote, I'll let the mincha be kosher, but I can't give you that you're yotzei your neder. But maybe where I say I'm going to bring 2 in 2 kalim, and I bring the 2 in 1 kli, at the end of the day I brought the 2, therefore what? It happens to be in the same type of kli. Instead of 2 kalim, I brought it in 1 kli, or vice versa. Or the other case where I said I'm going to bring it in 2 kalim and I bring it in 1 kli. What's the big deal? I brought the same amount of flour. I should be yotzei. Not only should I be able to eat it, I should be yotzei my neder. Says the Gemara, no, kamash malan. You have to do exactly what you said. And the flip side, if you only told me the second case where you promise you're going to bring 2 in 2 and you only bring 2 in 1, and you say that that's not good enough, mishum de kapalaglu. Well, you end up bringing, again, you say you're going to bring 2 in 1 and you end up bringing 2 in 2. You split them up. Maybe the reason you're not yotzei your neder is because you split them up. But at the end of the day, aval hasam de lo palig be'em alo, maybe even though you promised to bring it in a machavat and you bring it in a marcheshet, at the end of the day you're still bringing the same amount of flour, therefore you should be yotzei. Tzricha, therefore you need both to tell me no. Whatever you promise, you got to give exactly the same. We'll do whatever we can to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're bringing an additional korban as an adava, but if you promise to bring a machavat, it needs to be a machavat. If you promise to give 2 isranos and 2 kalim, you have to do that. If you don't, we can't give you credit for your neder, even though we might be able to give you credit for another korban. Tanu Rabbanan, Masha hevi v'dei nidro lo yat. So that's what we said. Again, in these cases, just using the most simple case, you promise a machavat and you bring a marcheshet. Masha hevi will count it as a marcheshet and you can eat it, like Rabbi was saying. However, at the end of the day, lo yatsa your neder. Rabbi Shimon Amar af yedei nidro nami yatsa. He says 5 words that throw everything in the Mishnah on its face, according to him. As long as you bring the right amount of flour, you're yotzei your neder, no matter what. You say you're going to bring a machava, you bring a marchesh, you say you're going to bring 2 esonim and 2 kalim, you're going to bring 2 esonim and 1 kalim. I'm going to continue, I want to just finish the Mishnah. You're going to bring 2 kalim into 2 esonim, whatever it is, you bring the right amount of flour, you're good to go. Clearly that's not the accepted opinion, or by most people, but that's what he holds. As long as you bring the right amount of flour, you're going to be yotzei. Finally, zula havi machavat, we say I'm going to bring this flour as a machavat. Then we say there's no way out. If you say I'm going to bring a machavat and you bring a marchesha, we could say it still counts as a marchesha, as an adava. But if I say I'm going to bring this flour as a machavat and you bring it a marchesha, you're stuck. Says Vatani lo kitchum kli shares. I understand. We're assuming that you brought it as a machavat. Fine, you offered it as a machavat. It's too late. But let's say you just put it into the marcheshet. It implies a mission that only if I say I'm going to bring this flour as a machavat in a machavat, it implies that even once I put it into the marcheshet, before I even bring it, I ruin it. Says Gemara, I don't understand. Lo kitchum kli shares. Why is that so? Let's say I say I'm going to bring this flour in a machavat. So if I put it into marcheshet and I bring it, and I go through the whole process, of course I understand that I can't count it as a machavat. But if I merely put it into a kli shares, if I put it into the marcheshet, into the deep pan, but I haven't yet done anything with it, why can't I go ahead and switch it into the machavat? A kli shares is not mekadesh something. Says the Gemara, O Rabbi, lo kitchum li karva, kitchum li paso. You're right. When we say that it's not mekadesh, I mean, it means that when I take the stuff from the machavat and I put it into the marcheshet, it can't be mekadesh that flour to now make it fit for a marcheshet. That much it can't do. But it could still ruin it. We had this before. It can't go ahead and make it kosher, but it can ruin it. So here it's not going to kosher it when you put it into the wrong one, but it's going to ruin it that the fact that the flour even went into the wrong one, once it goes into the wrong one, it's done. For Amar Abaye, and Abaye says one other thing. This whole discussion that we're talking about, Harei Alai, again, Harei Alai Machavat, you can't bring it as a Marcheshet. If you do, you'll still get credit, but this is all Ela Shekavan B'Shas Neder. This all has to do with, all we care about is what you said at the time of the neder. Aval b'shas hafrasha lo. Whatever you say when you're actually separating the flour doesn't count. What does that mean? For example, why? Because it says kasher nadarta v'lo kasher hafrashta. What does that mean? Look at Rashi. El shekam b'shas neder. Harei alai lahavi et zu b'machavat. We said, again, in terms of ruining it, we said that if I say harei alai b'machavat, I'm going to bring this as a machavat, and then I go ahead and I bring it as a marcheshet, it doesn't work. Whatever I say at the time of the neder is what we count. So if I say harezu, this flour is harezu for a machavat, so now this has got to go to a machavat, because at the time of the neder I said it has to go to a machavat. If I bring it to marcheshet, it's pasul. But let's just say harezu lemincha, and then when I'm separating the flour I say harezu lemachavat. If I bring it as a marcheshet, I get yotzei, and I even get credit for the marcheshet. Because the fact that I didn't say anything at the time of the neder, once it's not kasher nadarta, it's too late. I can only ruin it at the time of the neder. At the time of the neder is everything again, because then you could say, well, later on he changed his mind. No. Whatever you say at the time of the neder is how we're going to treat it. If you say, I'm going to bring a machavat at the time of the neder, then when you go ahead and you separate the flour, you say, I'm bringing it as a marcheshet. No. Whatever you said at the time of the neder. If you say, harei alai mincha at the time of the neder, that's the best. Because at the time of the neder you said, I'm going to bring a mincha, and then whatever you do, you do. Now, once you put it into the klisharis, maybe it's going to be a little different, but fine. So again, in this case where we're saying that harezu, that this flour needs to be used as a machavat, when we said that if you now use it as a marcheshet, it's ruined, that's only if you say harezu machavat at the time of the neder. But if at the time of the neder you say harezu for a mincha, this flour is going to be used for a mincha. If you then go ahead and even at the time of the separation of the flour and say I'm going to use this as a machavat, it doesn't count, and you can even use it as a marcheshet. Says the Gemara, Idmar Nami Amar Avracha Bar Chanina Amar Avasi Amar Rav Chinochanan Lo Shano Lo Shekavam B'Shas Neder Val B'Shas Hafrasha Lo, because it says Kasher Nadarta V'Lo Kasher Hafrasha. It has to do with at the time of the neder and not at the time of the hafrasha. Okay,